Let's talk about how to do small bust adjustments. Now you've chosen your size based on your high bust measurement, and if your full bust measurement is less than what is shown on the size chart for that size, you're going to need to do a small bust adjustment. So I've got the front pattern piece here. This is the one that needs to be altered. And if you hold it up to yourself, kind of mark, just add a dot where the fullest part of your bust is, because this is where we'll be adjusting from. And I'm going to show you how to do that on this half scale model here because it's a little easier to see. To determine the amount of adjustment you need to make, first you need to take the full bust measurement from the pattern, then you need to subtract your actual full bust measurement. And that difference is the amount of the small bust adjustment that you're going to need to make. So let's say that your full bust measurement is 34 inches, you're sewing a size small, the listed measurement for the full bust for the size small is 35 inches. So you subtract and you've got 1 inch. You need a 1 inch small bust adjustment. You are going to take that number and you're going to divide it in two because the pattern covers half of your body. So you're going to want to do a 1/2 inch adjustment on the pattern, and those together, one side and the other, will add up to the 1 inch total that you need of an adjustment. So let's pretend the bust point on this pattern is here. What you want to do this small bust adjustment, you're going to want to mark out from that bust point to the arm side. You're going to want to go down vertically from that bust point to the hem. And then you want to make a third line horizontally from the bust point to the side seam. Then we're going to cut hinges here. So start with the vertical one at the hem, cut up towards the bust point, and then angle towards the arm side. Cut as close as you can to the arm side without cutting through it. And what this does is it creates a hinge on the pattern so we can manipulate it and we can take out room here where you don't need it. You're also going to want to cut from the side seam towards the bust point. And again, cutting close to, but not through, that bust point. This is going to create a second hem so we can manipulate the side seam. And then we're going to want to add some paper under our pattern. So a good option for this at home is if you have wrapping paper rolls, you can unroll it and use the back white side of your wrapping paper to do this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my pattern down and I want to use these hinges to overlap my pattern the amount of the adjustment that I want to make. So I'm actually going to draw myself a line here. I want a 1/2 inch adjustment. I need to make a little mark here of where a 1/2 inch is. And then I want to overlap all the way to 1/2 inch, keeping these edges vertical. And that can sometimes be tricky with the angled piece here. So I want to keep them as close to vertical as I can, parallel. There we go. Let's move it in a little bit more. All right, so what I want to do now that I've got this overlapped appropriately is I want to trace the center front seam, I want to trace the yoke seam, and I want to trace the arm side down to the point here. And then I want to trace the bottom corner and the front corner. And then I want to measure how much this is overlapped here. So I'm actually going to mark the pattern where the overlaps are because that's going to make it easier to measure. So this looks like I overlapped 1/2 inch. That's going to be important because you notice that when I overlapped all of that and this ended up 1/2 inch shorter here, that means that the side seam is going to end up too short to match up to the back seam. So I actually am going to need to move this corner down 1/2 inch now so that I'm keeping the same length seam here. So I'm just going to slide it down and now I want to mark the corner here. And then there's one more move that I need to make, which is you'll notice this is overlapped here, which means I have decreased the width of the hips and waist. Another thing I don't want to do because it's only the bust area that we want to adjust. So I'm going to measure this overlap here, and that looks like 5/8 of an inch. So I want to move it out 5/8 of an inch here. And slide my pattern out to there, and then mark that lower corner once more. Now I can move my pattern out of the way, and I can trace out the adjusted pattern. So I want to go from the arm side down to the hem, and then I want to go across from that adjusted corner to the front. You may find this line may angle slightly upward, and that's okay because you took out a little of that vertical room since you don't need as much to go out and over a bust. And then I want to finish the center front seam. So this is my adjusted for small bust piece, and now you can take that and you can start cutting out your pattern so that we can start sewing.